I am a computer scientist. I went to art school. I am a full stack software engineer, amateur artist. I did my internship on the Chrome team at Google. Learned a lot how they build software, and a lot of that has come to life in SquadCast. And my personal mission is to connect creatives.
Hey guys, this is Avi Arya, father of 2 girls, 6 dogs, husband to a superwoman, a street car racer turned hotelier, now social media marketer and founder of Internet Moguls. Welcome to my channel. So guys, I'd like to for all of you to join me in welcoming the guest for today, Zach from SquadCast. Zach, how are you doing?
Hey, Avi. I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for taking the time out to make it for this call. Once again, you were on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, which was recorded, by the way, on SquadCast. How are you doing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can't be happier. We have our first child on the way, and business is growing, and so much to look forward to. So very grateful for that.
That is fantastic. Where are you right now, Zach?
I'm in the Bay Area, Oakland, California.
Oh, so nice sunny weather.
Yeah, it's been weirdly windy here, but can't complain. I love the Bay Area weather.
Excellent. Oh yes, the Bay Area weather for sure. So your SquadCast is not moving to Texas like all the others.
I'm actually grateful there's people moving to Texas. It's very crowded here. It's like, go enjoy Texas. That's cool. There's plenty of space there. We'll hold it down here. I love California, so
I can imagine that. No, I am in San Diego for 1 month every year for the last so many years, except this last COVID year. We start our hike with the Social Media Mastery World Conference, which is like 5,000 marketers from around the world, and there's one conference after the other. So 30 days of being there in San Diego, and then coming back to Vancouver. By the time you come back to Vancouver, it's nice and summer here as well. And,
yeah, they do the conferences really, really well in San Diego. My one of our advisors, Pat Flynn, has FlynnCon, and that's in San Diego, and Social Media Marketing World, Comic Con. I mean, they do it really well. And then,
yeah,
I love Vancouver.
Comic Con last 2 times. I want to do that. I believe it's crazy. And yeah,
I've never been.
We know Pat is a good friend. Pat is amazing, and yeah,
he loves San Diego.
Yes, of course he does. Absolutely. So we have about 60 entrepreneurs right now. We're expecting about 40 more in the next couple of minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how many people have ever? So Zach, I'll tell you a little bit about these awesome entrepreneurs. They're all part of this online school that we've created for entrepreneurs only, which is called the Internet Moguls of the World, where they all come in for 52 weeks of training, and we help them launch their products or services and take it online. But we also have our every Thursday masterclass series for them, where we have guests coming from all over the world and essentially giving them a global school experience. We have people coming in from Stanford. We have people like you coming in, heartfelt. I say the most hardworking. You're a hard worker. We're all hardworking, but if you put hard work with your hard work, it becomes better. Entrepreneurs who love their families and still leverage the internet to grow their business and spend time with them. These are our Internet Moguls. So this is the school that we built, and these are the entrepreneurs who've taken part in the 1-year program.
Wonderful. I think I can't say enough good things about community, like the podcast community that we serve, our community of customers creating content remotely on SquadCast, and then also just the community of entrepreneurs. We just wrapped up a year-long accelerator for that exact reason, and that was remote. That was all online. So I think we're in good company here, and I'm glad people are learning from you, Avi.
Awesome. So Zach, do you want to do a presentation style, a demo style, or just that's Q&A, whatever works for you?
I'm happy to do like a lightning demo and then take some questions from you, Avi, and your community. That sounds cool.
That's fantastic. So guys, let me tell you a story. I recently interviewed Zach. Zach is friends with so many of my friends, one of them being Tyler Basu. He's just here in Vancouver, Canada. So we had so many friends in common. We said we need to talk. and we spoke, and I said, I'm starting a new podcast. And the thing with podcasts was that normally there's a forum for podcasts where you'll come up with a nice mic and all your equipment on one side, but on the other side, your guest has a very strong possibility of ruining the experience because yeah, he's not a podcaster, right? So Zach and his partner, they came up with an idea of having a great audio experience on both sides. I still didn't jump in. I'm normally the first adopter of every tool. I collect tools like I used to collect comics in my childhood, but I still waited because I wanted the video option to come in. And now I think it's a complete tool because when I now interview people, I have video and audio both. So, uh, all of you people, audio is the new frontier. The reason being that people are allowed to multitask. I go to the gym every day and I'm listening to somebody or the other. I go for a walk with my dog, three dogs, 3 times a day. I've been telling my wife, can we do
A lot.
twice for me and twice? Oh, yeah, I know because some of these guys are really big and they want, extra walks. And my daughter's like, you're big too. You can use a walk as well, daddy. So, anyway, so we go for these non-stop walks. And every time I'm like, on my walk, I want to come back and say I learned something new. So 3 walks a day, you learn so much stuff. It all happens because of the audio experience. For all of us in India, guys, I'll tell you one thing. The podcast market has just about started, and you can put your flag in the ground and use your micro niche. We talk very much about the micro niche here, Zach, how you can hone in on one specialty and then tell the world, put your flag in the ground and say, this is who I am and that's what I stand for. So, guys,
Yeah.
for all of you people, Zach is going to talk about how the tool works, how to get started with podcasts, and then we'll take some questions. Great. Zach, over to you.
This is SquadCast.fm, and we have a list of my upcoming sessions. I have past sessions here. You can see I've been recording for a while. And a recording session is just a way to organize and say, hey, this is like going to a physical studio. I'm gonna record a session. So I'll just make this one real quick. You can send invites through email, and we take care of that for you and make it super easy for your guests to connect. Or you can just save it and copy like an invite link. I'll skip over that for now and just go ahead and start the session. We have a secure experience on SquadCast, so we need a camera and microphone permission. We have some best practices here for recording. Like Avi said, your guest isn't always a professional podcaster, so why does quality matter? It maps to credibility, and that's been shown in research here by USC. So we all want to sound credible. Influence doesn't come for free. You need to present credibly. So some other things like wearing headphones and why that's important. You can see we both have headphones on today. That's not a fashion statement. They actually hurt my ears quite a lot because I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's
Wow.
that's a thing. Internet stuff, all that. So just make it easy. And I have a couple cameras here, so I'll go ahead and switch to the same one you see me on. So you can kind of see a preview of yourself. You can see this is private backstage kind of green room experience, and I can check my hair and make sure my microphone's all wired up, using the right headphones before I join. So I'll go ahead and join the session real quick, and you can see I'm here by myself, but I'm gonna do some magic real quick and copy that same invite link I mentioned before and just kind of invite myself as a guest. So this will be a little trippy, but I think you'll get the picture. All right, so I'm the host over here on the right, and then you can see the guest joining experience here in Chrome Incognito on the left. So you can see permissions, best practices. I'll go ahead and select some equipment here. Hopefully I don't hear an echo. And you can see right away that I'm connected to myself here. I can kind of give myself a high five. And I'm going to mute.
I'm looking at
I
the
am
man in the
hearing an
mirror.
echo. There we go. That's better. So you can see this would be your guest on the one side and you on the other. You can record with 2 or 3 or 4 people on SquadCast, and everybody's going to be the same constant, very high quality audio. And I believe this account for me is on video as well. So I don't have to jump through any hoops to record video. We just have this big record button, and you can see as soon as I click that, I start recording for everybody. Everybody can kind of see what's going on, have control of their own equipment, see each other's equipment and what network connectivity looks like. That's a really powerful feature when it comes to confidence that everybody's connected and using the right equipment. This is a bit of a contrived example because I'm recording muted audio, but we'll have video as well. So I'll just record like 30 seconds here. Go ahead and click stop, and you can see right away, right? That was kind of magically fast. I already have the audio that I can download in WAV and MP3. We already have the video only in WebM, and you can see that those are rendering as well. I get a preview over here if I want to see that 32-second long video. That was recorded locally and in studio quality. So quality really, like I said, maps to credibility, and that's why we make this super easy to download the audio, download the video, and make that easy to share. If you have like a producer that you work with, I know Avi, you have an amazing team. That's something where you don't necessarily want to download and upload. It's already in the cloud, so we can just copy a link to that. All good there. So I'll just let that keep doing its thing. Looks like that other video is taking a second, but I think that's a pretty good lap around the experience on SquadCast. So I'll go ahead and leave as the guest. That takes me back to the homepage. Let me move Zoom out of the way and come back, leave as the host. And you can see that I'll have that session here that we just recorded with 2 recordings, and I can access those playback. I can download and share and all that good stuff. So we're all about making that super easy, and I think that's where it's a similar experience to what we're doing here on Zoom. The biggest difference is that it's a recording studio first and a conversation, like remote conversation platform second. And that emphasis on quality is very meaningful when it comes to creating content, like content creators. And if you're going to have a long-term relationship with your audience or monetize your content, quality matters a lot. So that's really let me touch on some things that you didn't see, right? You didn't see my guest need an account or need to sign in or install anything. All I did was copy that link, and I opened it in another browser, but your guest, all they would need to do is click it, and they're in and recording with you. They didn't have to send you any files. They didn't have to, as I said, create an account. So that's a very minimal experience on the guests to connect, and they get to sound great and make your life easier when it comes to producing that content into your podcast, into video content on YouTube or social media. And all of those creative possibilities really come to life with the same amount of time investment. That's the other beautiful thing, is that you record a half an hour, hour-long conversation, and you have audio, you have video if you're into that, and you have the option to on SquadCast. You don't have to record video if you don't like to. That's cool too. We started with audio, and yeah, our standards are very high when it comes to the quality. So I think that's a pretty good lap around what we do at SquadCast.
Lovely. So I'll just recap it a bit. So you're saying the initial premise was most people, when they're doing a podcast session, they might get mic'd up because they want the right audio and video audio experience.
Mhm.
But on the other side, when your guest comes in, they have an echo, they might not have a mic, and so many things. And so therefore the listening experience gets ruined. So you came up with SquadCast, which is a tool where the audio experience with up to 4 guests on one chat is the same all around.
Mhm.
Number 2, to invite a guest to my SquadCast podcast, all I need to do is send him a link. He doesn't need to download an app or a software. It's a
Right.
web-based application, and so therefore he can log in, log out without having to download anything or have any
Any
extra.
browser, yeah, any computer. Like we have people who record on like Chromebooks, like very, very minimal hardware is
Right.
needed. You don't need like some beefy computer to do recording on SquadCast. Yeah.
Awesome. And now you have the video and audio experience as well. Both the files get saved differently, separately. And so as for me, I'll tell you how Zach, and you can tell the audience what kind of experiences that you have, how people are using this. What I normally do is I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and my teams are in India, and I'm doing at least two recordings every week. And the recordings sometimes happen at 3 a.m. in the morning or sometimes at 3 p.m., which is 3 a.m. in India. So what I do is all I do is I have a Squadcast link which is all set up. My guest has it. Uh, we do a recording. As soon as the recording is done, I record the intro and the outro. Hey guys, in today's episode, I'm going to be bringing in Zach, the founder of Squadcast, and you're going to learn ABC. Stay tuned for this amazing podcast with another internet mogul of the world, Zach from Squadcast. And then, then I'll do an outro. Guys, I hope you loved this as much as I did. What are the three best takeaways that you got from this interview? Drop it in the comment box. Make a post, put it on Instagram, tag me, ask Avi Arya, and one lucky winner every Sunday gets a book on entrepreneurship couriered to their house from us. Once again, thank you for watching the Internet Moguls of the World. Stay tuned for another episode next Friday, same time. I record both the intros and outros at the end of the episode, and I just click save, and the files start saving. And I'm off to doing whatever I'm doing, walking the dog, or doing whatever I need to do. And the files can be accessed by the editing team because everything is on the cloud. The editing team has the intro, they have the outro, they have the meat of the matter, and then they edit everything. They sort of put everything together and they upload it on my podcast, and it's as simple as that.
Mhm.
So any other, you have so many clients around the world and you have so many people using this podcast, and you have lots of celebrities using this as well. So
Yeah.
do you have any other, like, how do you have any other ideas on how people are using Squadcast?
Yes, yes, a lot of great ways people are using it. I think what you just described is a fantastic workflow. So I want to applaud you on that quick performance as well. Um, the vast majority of the creators that we serve are podcasters working on long form content, interview styles, but we also have more narrative style podcasting where you can start and stop recording and do as many takes as you like. You can have two voice actors on there acting out a scene, and a director as a third person who their audio never makes it into the production, but you're left with these voice actors, or those could be interview people with more of like a director. We also have a lot of audiobook creators on the platform. So Audible
Ah,
and ACX, like Penguin Random House, Audavita Productions, like recording both podcasts and also audiobooks. So we have you might have caught when I opened the download menu there that you can also download the audio as an MP3 file. And you might say, Zach, you're talking a lot about quality. MP3s are not the highest quality. Like, what are you doing? That's because that MP3 actually maps to the Audible standard for uploading to their
ah,
platform. So, of course, we have the uncompressed wave. You have a choice, right? Of if you want to save
true.
some file size, if your internet connection, you don't want to, you want to save that data. That's cool too. So yeah, and then we added video recording, as you mentioned, at the end of January, which opens up this whole other side of the coin when it comes to remote content production, is how we think of it. That's the new category that we're defining and working to create. So with video, the possibilities get amplified towards creating teasers for each episode of like the best quote of your guest. You can share that in advance to get people hyped up for your episode that
Uh-huh.
drops on your podcast like the next day. We have seen a bunch of creative work going on to make YouTube is the second largest search engine on the web. So why should audio creators, podcasters care about YouTube is a really good question, and we found a very meaningful answer in that you can create funnels. So, excuse me, you have a bunch of clips edited into short videos that you put on YouTube. Those are topical. Sorry, my bulldog's coming in from his walk. I don't know if you can
Oh,
hear
I
him.
love that. We will love to hear him and see him as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see. See if he'll make an appearance. He's done.
Alrighty.
Just
Damn,
coming in to
anyways.
check on our production here. And yeah, so making topical, like basically one question videos, one question, one answer videos, and publishing those on YouTube as topical videos. And you end up with, like, if you have a 1 hour, 2 hour conversation, you end up with several clips that you put on YouTube. And all of those are kind of a bite-sized appetizer of your long form content. And you watch one or two of those videos and you're like, man, Avi is crushing it on this interview. I'm going to go and dive in headfirst for the long form full thing podcast and subscribe and listen to the next episode. And we've seen people like the Lex Friedman podcast. And I think, maybe not the best example for today, but Joe Rogan, I think, was one of the first people to start doing that approach as well. I'm a big fan of the MIT Artificial Intelligence podcast with Lex Friedman, and he does this, I think, maybe better than Joe. So we've seen that work really well for people to grow their audience. Like, people talk about growth in podcasting is often word of mouth. Well, the second biggest venue for a channel for growth is social media, and I think this is coming to life with the practice I just described with YouTube and kind of the clips and building a funnel towards your long form content. And so it can be a lot to ask somebody to invest an hour, 2 hours into listening to this conversation. So starting makes sense to kind of start off with something a little more low stakes and still expose them to the great message and stories that your guests are telling.
So you're saying even for Instagram, like have smaller clips and saying from Instagram, put a nice clip on Instagram. How the rocket that we found in Zach's office is the real rocket missing from NASA from 1974.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly. And we do this. We do this with our podcast, Between Two Mics, where we'll take a quote that is meaningful to the topic of conversation, and we'll make that into a short video that goes onto our stories, that goes onto our feed, that can go onto YouTube, it can go onto Facebook, and Twitter. So that's I think, like, much more lightweight investment when it comes to somebody just scrolling through a feed to say, all right, I'm interested in this topic, maybe not this person. And that's, I think, the difference is how do you help tell your guest story if they don't really have a lot of name recognition yet? Right. So it's just like, okay, well, they're clearly an expert on this topic. So that's more of a channel to get people interested and say, okay, this astrophysicist actually knows what they're talking about. And, I was interested in the topic of black holes, and that exposed me to this expert on that topic. So I think kind of we're used to, in digital marketing and on the web, we're used to building funnels, right? Like free resource in exchange for an email. Gets you on the list, and that can be nurtured. And then, over time, community building towards ultimately, like, potentially like trying out a free trial where there's like less and less stakes along the way, and you get to know people over time. It's not just like, hey, sign up for my thing and pay me $100 like for the year today. Like, that's a tall order. That's a lot to ask. If you were to just walk up to somebody in San Francisco and say that, they'd be like, nah, back up, bro. Like, so it takes time. We want to build long-term, meaningful relationships. And that's where I think giving builds up over time towards, like, all right, I'm actually going to subscribe to this podcast. I'm going to buy some merch. I'm going to engage in the community and really, really get more and more invested.
Got it. I have some questions here. So Zach, you so for all the audience, on the entrepreneurs listening, we spoke a little bit about micro marketing, so that people can come and see who you are, what your podcast is about. How do you promote a guest who's lesser known, maybe not a big name brand, but an expert in the subject? So don't maybe lead with his name, but lead with the knowledge and the subject matter that he's talking about. Great insights. Now, a lot of people are crippled by just trying to make a decision on what should my podcast be about. What we talk about here in this when everybody joins this 52-week training program, the first session is about how to find your micro niche, dig deeper, and keep digging deeper till it starts hurting. You're like, oh my god, I can't go deeper. You know what, it's going to be so small, very narrow, I don't want to do it. I said, when it starts hurting, that's when that's when it started working. So when people narrow down a micro niche and say, this is who I am, so the micro niche then helps people create a podcast, create a YouTube channel, everything around the micro niche. So,
Hmm.
and then they start a podcast, they go on a Podbean, or, they go on Spotify, they go wherever, they start a podcast, host it. Now, the question I wanted to ask on behalf of the audience is, what should I talk about? Should I talk about
Hmm.
just my everyday story, my everyday rants? As a human being, my mindset goes up and down. I'm a crazy person, I'm a weirdo, I'm not telling the world. But guess what? I think if you do tell the world, you'll find a lot of other weirdos who'll tell you you're
Oh
normal.
yeah.
That could be one way of doing it. The other way is like what I'm doing. I think this is the lazy man's way to success, which is that I bring in amazing rock stars, and like Zach, they do the magic, and I'm like, yeah, come for my podcast and you're having fun. So that's the
Yeah, that
second way
works
of
too.
doing it. And the third way of doing it is sometimes I have my daughters in the studio, and then we have somebody from India or another guest. So four of us, we're just having a freewheeling conversation around the coaching industry. And like I put in some masala, as they say it. I put in some spice, and I'm like, I don't think the coaching industry is going to survive beyond 2020. You prove to me. It's over to you to prove to me how it's going to. Come on, Abhi. You cannot can't be more ridiculous than that. So four people having a entertainment information kind of a thing. So what
That's a
other
bold
kinds of
statement, Avi. I like that.
I know, I'm just saying that's exactly the bold statement, just to add flavor and make sure everybody adds to the. So what do you say? What other ideas, or what other formats can you give to our audiences? Because I want these 84 entrepreneurs. I want them to go back with some ideas. Say this is what my podcast is going to be, and they start
Mhm.
doing it today.
So, would you like me to start with kind of how I've learned from people how they find their micro niche, or kind of
That
assume
would
you already have it, and then like how do you come up with topical ideas to talk about?
both. If you
Okay.
could talk about how you've seen people do micro, that would be awesome.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So I think like you said, go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole until you kind of can't, like you're at the smallest unit of possibility.
Yeah.
That's certainly a good practice. Another way to get more and more granular, to kind of more and more micro and nano and whatever unit of measure you want to use, is to combine two things that are very niche. So you could say, okay, I want to have a podcast where I talk about the art world. I want to talk about like people buying and selling art, artists creating art, like the financial aspect, forgery, right? Like I want to talk about art. Okay, but art is like, obviously I just broke it down into a bunch of different niches. So I could make a podcast about art forgery. Okay, cool. So then I want to there, if I go and start looking at that, like is that micro enough? You might ask yourself
Sure.
at any stage, and then start searching. Is there something else along that? Does something already exist on art forgery? Or maybe it's about this one particular museum and how it has a lot of forgery. But you start to combine these things together. So I want to say, okay, art forgery, that seems like niche, but I can't really get any smaller than that. Then you can say, okay, one way to make it smaller, more micro, is to combine it with another topic that is very micro already. So I want to say like, okay, well, cryptocurrencies are obviously, that's a big topic. It's exploding, but also my grandma, my uncles don't know what cryptocurrency is. So that's still pretty
Right.
niche, right? And you can say, all right, well, how does art and cryptocurrencies intersect?
Right.
Are you people using cryptocurrencies to buy art? Are people using crypto technology,
I like
blockchain,
that.
to have art? And are people using crypto artwork to make forgeries? Right. And you start to get like very unique, where it's like, okay, I want to talk about seahorses, but I want to talk about how climate change and seahorses intersect, right? So I think when you get towards an intersection of two kind of granular topics, you get to a place where like nobody's going to be talking about that specific combo,
Of
right? So
course.
I think that's you can even introduce like seahorses, climate change, and like dog sitting. I don't know how that third one would fit in there, but you get what I'm saying here in the kind of
100%.
practice here.
And then, so then how do you validate the idea? I love how you said you could bring in two, three elements together. And
Mhm.
I'm such a big believer of that, it's, and because I'm sure for the many people in the audience, this is sounding uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, that's the way to go. But then how do you validate an idea, or do
Mhm.
you how would you validate an idea?
Yeah, so
Before
validation,
that,
I mean,
sorry, I just want to tell the audience. Can you, Zach, for all the entrepreneurs out here, can you tell us about your education background so they know where you're coming from? Like you're like a
my
ninja
background.
at,
Yeah.
yeah, at all the degrees that you've got.
Sure. Yeah. So I am a computer scientist. I went to art school. I am a full stack software engineer, amateur artist. I did my internship on the Chrome team at Google. Learned a lot how they build software, and a lot of that has come to life in SquadCast. And my personal mission is to is to connect creatives. I believe that creativity is enhanced when more than one person comes together to like co-create something. It goes in unique directions that nobody can really plan or predict. And that's where I think improv is a very interesting kind of core fundamental skill that comes to life with podcasting, with creating content, and specifically when you're creating with other people. That's where the magic kind of happens in my mind, and unique things come to life.
So I just wanted to set the context for everybody else as he talks about micro niche and all of that. The gentleman over here is a computer scientist who worked with Google and has studied art and believes from his heart in the power of community. Okay, I'll let you
Absolutely.
proceed.
I taught at Cal Berkeley. I've written a book. I have two podcasts. One's called Crypto Art. One's called Between Two Mics. Between Two Mics is where we talk to people who are moving podcasting forward and really innovating. Crypto art is one of the micro niche topics where it's a combination of the intersection of art and cryptocurrencies. And having gone to art school and a computer scientist, that was like a topic I could not talk about. It's fascinating to me. So I practice exactly what you are suggesting. There's a lot of podcasts about podcasting, and that's really where it's like, okay, Between Two Mics is at the intersection of podcasting about podcasting, but is about specifically innovation and new pieces on the board, people moving it forward. So I think that that's
Agree.
really how we've put those to practice. Yeah. So to validate, to come back to your question about that,
Sure.
um, there's a ton of parallels, by the way, if I can pause here. There are a lot of parallels between being a bootstrap startup founder, which I'm proud to be, and also an independent podcaster. You essentially have the same job. It's just that you're creating content versus creating a technology product. So validation, right? You have these hypotheses, you want to validate it, you have to come up with some tests. So how to do that, I'm really big on having conversations with people and listening. So trying to find people who are interested in climate change and how it impacts seahorses is like that could be tough to find people in that niche. And
Sure.
that's one of the things that is kind of paradoxically hard about going very, very micro is, are there other people who are interested in that intersection? But that's the beautiful thing about the internet, is the answer is almost certainly yes, there are.
Right. Right.
And we have to get creative to find those people to help validate. And that's really where Facebook communities, like, subreddits, authors who have written books on parallel topics or maybe even the direct topic. And I think finding people who are your potential audience and just asking them, like, is this something you would listen to? I think a lot of podcasters basically fall into they have the pitfall of like a lot of startups do, where if we build it, they will come.
Right.
And that's that's crap. That's just old advice. Unless you're Steve Jobs, which like people have
Right.
done this, right? People have done this, and that's like a miracle from my perspective. But for the rest of us humans, we have to validate. We have to talk to people. We have to listen. And if you can't find anybody after like a month or so, who's not into seahorses and how they're impacted by climate change, either like keep trying, try another experiment, or just say, wow, I just saved a bunch of work. Now I don't have to create this podcast because there's nobody who's into it. So trying to force it when you can't find anybody, that's just going to be a waste of your time and your energy. And we're all doing this because we want to connect with an audience. So if you can't find that audience, or even one person, that's probably a pretty good indicator that like, okay, the experiment was a success. I learned something that I didn't know before, but it wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. And that's really
Sure.
where you get people who are like, very personal, right? You take it personally that, no, I want this to work. And it's like, just try to be objective about it and find what people are into.
Lovely. About in the last 4 years, I met two very interesting people. One lady said that she got married to somebody from a very affluent household, and the husband is very, very successful. And she's like, I didn't know how I should find my place under the sun. So she says how to get free from the golden cage and find your own voice. So she created everything around it, a book, a podcast, everything. And she's super successful doing that. Then I met another lady at a conference who used to live in a joint family of some 21, 22 people. She created her whole brand avatar around how to find your sanity and growth living in a large joint family in India. So you can, your real life situations where you might
Yeah.
say, oh my God, how am I even coping with this? That might be a coping, your blueprint could be a coping mechanism for so many others.
Yeah. And I think that's like documenting a journey,
Mm.
and people are into that because this stuff is hard, right? Like you basically set a big goal for yourself and then say, okay, I want to get there, reach for the stars. And then the podcast is documenting that journey along the way. And some of those things can be topical where you're like, okay, I'm running into this brick wall. I have this plateau in my jujitsu career. And I'm talking about the struggles there. Let's bring on an expert, and talk about that. Side note, this is another way. This is a way to get basically like free consultation advice, by the way, because you're not paying that person for their expertise. You are essentially paying them in audience like exposure, in impressions of your audience. And that's a win-win, right? We're not like taking advantage of somebody. It's just that the value proposition, the exchange, is a little different than you just paying a coach for their time or something like
Yeah,
that.
and you being as transparent. So thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to share this with the audience as well. And so a part of my business works with the corporates, and we do a lot of digital for them. So every fortnight for the last, I don't know how many years, I bring in a guest who I want should be my potential client one day.
Yeah.
So the CMOs of companies or the owners of large hotels and all of that, I tell them I'll bring in an audience and we'll promote your podcast like this, and I'd love for you to be there. Now that
Yeah.
90% of the people say, "Oh, I'd love it." The people who would maybe not pick up my phone or see my micro video, they're like, "Hey, thanks for the invitation. I'll make it happen. How long is it? What do you want me to say?" And in that 1 hour, you create such a rapport. And after that, you're like, "Hey, we should hang out sometime together or get on a call." And that's it. That relationship leads to so many other doors opening, or maybe just that client coming into your ecosystem. So, and I say this to
Yeah.
everyone who's here, as on all the entrepreneurs, who are the people that you would like to work with? If they are your potential target audience, bring them on your podcast. They, most of them won't say no, and that allows you an opportunity to build a rapport with them. So how many people
I've
like this
seen
idea?
this.
And I've sort of had a bulb on moment. Just say bulb on in the comment box.
I've seen this
Right.
exactly what you're saying, Avi, like work over and over again, like different verticals, dentists, like construction software, like startups, right? Like there's so many ways. And you might ask, like, how I have a business, like what's interesting about that, and it's exactly what you just shared. Is even if that is like, and another thing is like, your metric for success, if this is your approach for your podcast, your metric for success isn't necessarily number of downloads and number of episodes listened to. It's
Right.
that you talk to that person and they became a customer. That's revenue for you. That's much more of a meaningful metric than like downloads. So I've seen people where the show doesn't even get listened to hardly, and they close deals this way. They
Of
get
course.
customers this way. And
100%.
and you build up that credibility. The stories become more and more interesting, and having listeners helps, but you're essentially coming from a place of giving. Like if you were to just reach out on LinkedIn and say, like, you know I want to help you with your business. I have this amazing product and the value is insane and you're going to triple, and all of this stuff. That's awesome. That might work. But if you approach it from, hey, I have this podcast, I have this audience, they're eager to hear and learn from somebody like you in your position, and that's coming from more of a place of giving. And then it's almost a side effect that they're going to learn about you and your business and how you're going to help them triple and all of those things.
Yes.
So it's coming from a different angle of approach, and you get to the same place a lot of times.
I love that. I love how you sort of simplified and the ROI of it. The ROI for you is that you got that client. You don't need 1 million listeners and then get ads there. That's not your way of monetizing it. When it
No.
comes to personal branding, so we here in this community, we talk about three things: get known, get leads, get sales. That's like like I say, every Shark Tank entrepreneur who answers these three questions, or pretty much gets funded. So to
Hmm.
get known in the ecosystem, a lot of people, like we call this branding by association. You call in a Pat Flynn for your show, and just by the virtue of you being on a Pat Flynn, sort of together on a podcast, all of that sort of raises your authority in your field, because it's branding by association. So
Yeah.
when are we seeing Elon Musk on your show?
Yeah. So he does do podcasts. So I have hope. That's definitely on my wish list, on my bucket list, and um, that will happen. So as far fetched as it is, I'm gonna make that happen.
Lovely.
Um, he's also into crypto art, so maybe that's the show for it. I don't know, but the
And he
yeah
can
the
make it
the
go up 600-700% by the end of your 1 hour show. And so Zach and Elon made the market $200 billion in the last 60 minutes.
Uh, I mentioned the MIT AI podcast with Lex Friedman, and he's been on there twice. So I mean,
Uh-huh.
Lex went from just being a professor at MIT to talking to Elon. So that's a thing. And yeah,
No
the
dream too small.
credibility. No, no, absolutely not. And it's just a matter of time. It may take a lot of time, but we're investors, so we're investing that time long term. So that's where I think, to come back to your point about credibility by association, uh, a lot has been said about podcasting and how it's intimate for the audience relationship, but you're also building relationships with the guests that you're talking to. And the last example we just provided, that's kind of one type of relationship, like a client relationship, you might call it. But there are other types of relationships. And one of the interesting things we see on SquadCast is, as you saw, we can connect with other people, we can record and create that content kind of on the record. But we see pretty clearly in our data that only about the middle third, 1/3 of the conversation is actually recorded. So that means there's 1/3 before, there's 1/3 after. And what's happening during that time? People are getting to
Relationships.
know each other. They're building relationships. They're talking about how they can help each other. If you only really focus on the interview and then you just like dip out real quick, you kind of miss that opportunity to
Right.
deepen that relationship. And this may be the only half an hour or hour you get to talk to that person. So that's really where podcasting, one of the values that isn't necessarily directly monetized, or it's not like talked about as like a superpower of podcasting, but it's the networking benefits of it, because you're getting to know more people, you're helping share their stories, again coming from a place of giving. So if you're always focused on like lifting your guest up and providing a positive experience, quality experience for your audience, that's going to really deepen those relationships. And hopefully is just the start. That podcast interview is just the start of a long-term relationship. And that could be for a client, that could be somebody who you look up to in your field of study, somebody who may help you in some way like a year from now, or you may help them a year from now. And I think that that's something that we've seen play out over and over again. Like one of our other advisors, Jordan Harbinger, he's essentially like a master communicator. That's how I would describe him. I mean, he might describe himself differently, but the podcast, the Jordan Harbinger Show, gets millions of downloads every week, and he has been at that um, at that practicing that relationship building weekly for like over 10 years now. And
Wow.
this is like compound interest. It's like compound interest for your listeners, but it's also compound interest for your personal network, your community of people that you've gotten to know over time and find ways to help. So that's a benefit of podcasting I don't think people talk about enough, is that
I agree.
you can connect with people. And if you just, again, to the counter example, if you just DM somebody and say, hey, I want to talk to you for 30 minutes, that's less compelling, right? You might throw in there, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. That's a little bit more compelling, but still very less, not very compelling. If you say, I'm going to get you in front of 2,000 listeners next week for half an hour of your time, that's very compelling, right?
100%. Okay. Zach, I've got two last questions before we let you go. Thank you again for giving us your time. One is, where is Zach and where is Squadcast going to be 12 months from now?
Yeah, 12 months from now, we have a very ambitious roadmap planned for this year, and we're already hard at work at building that out. So we launched video at the end of January. We're about to launch, I believe the 10th of next month. We're launching an update that is a massive collaboration with Dolby. So we're adding Dolby Voice and some
Nice.
one-click mastering, post-production to audio. Screen share, screen recording, a bunch of great stuff. So that's our next update.
Watch out, Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, we want the conversation on SquadCast to be as close to reality as possible. And that's really where the technology starts to fade into the background and the conversation can really flow as if we were in person. So that's really where the Dolby Voice comes in and enhances it quite a bit. So we're really excited about that.
And what quadruples my respect for you, my friend, is that all of this crazy stuff you're doing bootstrapped. You've not borrowed any money. You're not funded. You've been profitable from the get. So that is fantastic.
For that
Full
recognition.
respect for that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're essentially our own angel investors, and that's where I think a lot of, if looking backwards on the conversation we've shared today, a common thread is this perspective of thinking about things as an investor, like taking a long-term perspective, a long-term time horizon. You're investing your time and your creativity to build up your network and your content and your audience, and that can come to life for your business in the ways that we've described. So that's something that I tend to look at, like, as the CEO of a startup, we invest resources, right? We make key hires. We empower people to have their platform for leadership, with like Gene on our engineering team, hiring 2 other engineers last month, Hannah and Anthony, right? So we've been doing this for about 5 years now. And I really appreciate you sharing your respect for that. So it's a really cool time for us this year. We have a lot of goals for the company. We might raise capital. That's something that's in the cards for us as well. I mean, certainly the capital markets are very, very frothy right now. There's a lot of capital flying around. So if you're a startup investor, that seems like it's never really been easier to gain access to capital. And also globally, right? Like, that's the other thing that is kind of been shaken up during the pandemic, is you don't have to go to Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto to pitch VCs to get your startup funded. These people are meeting on Zoom. Like, take my word for it. Like, so you could be anywhere in the world and get connected with these people.
Awesome. And we asked you this question last time, but I want to ask you in front of the audiences slightly differently. And I said, most people decline to answer this question because it's scary and it's too personal. But who's your favorite superhero?
I'm gonna go with Iron Man, Tony Stark. Yeah.
And why?
I'm all about the technology. So I know Hulk has some technology in there too. That's more like bioengineering, I would think. But man, those lasers, they're cool. So yeah.
Why I ask this question at the end of every interview is because I believe you see in others what you have inside of you. Every superhero, every human being that you're inspired by, you see a glimpse of yourself in that person.
Yeah, that's the magic of storytelling, right? Is the hero on a journey, overcoming obstacles and coming to some character development that changes who they are fundamentally. And I think with each podcast episode, we think of our guest as the hero. We're Yoda, and we're helping them grow on this journey. The guest is Luke Skywalker in this example,
Right.
and I totally agree with you there. So as I watch Marvel films or Star Wars films, that's something I'm always thinking about
Awesome.
is the hero's journey. And that's really cool that we can be kind of in the mentor kind of guiding role and helping tell other people's story and their journey of overcoming these obstacles and, changing who they are and how they see the world.
Fantastic. Zach, thank you so much for making it here for our Thursday Moguls
Thank you, Akshay.
Masterclass to talk to and teach and empower and motivate almost 83 entrepreneurs over here today. Guys, can we all give a big internet mogul thank you to Zach in the comment box?
And I really appreciate it. This has been we've covered a lot of things. This has been a great conversation. And yeah, I'm really grateful for everybody else's time joining us today and sharing great questions, and really cool. Thank you for all the appreciation I see coming into the
Awesome,
comments.
Zach. Thank you, Zach. We'll stay in touch and look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you
Alrighty.
again.
You find me loser, set me free. You make me win every way. You show